Time for the Mr. Zombie ranking. One of the most ultimates. Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with an official ranking, and it's not a franchise ranking. I'm going to be ranking a director's movies, and the movies I'm going to be ranking are the movies that were directed by the White Zombie himself, Rob Zombie. Now we all know, Rob Zombie is a great musician, and he's directed a lot of movies that have ranged from either mediocre to terrible, with two exceptions. So, now that the Munsters was released last week, it is time to rank all of Zombie's movies. And before I get into this ranking, guys, I'm going to clarify this. I'm not going to include his Halloween remakes because I am saving those for my Halloween re-ranking, but I will mention them in the middle of this video. But anyway, getting started, let's get started on this whole ranking from worst to best, and we all pretty much already know what the number one worst is going to be. Alright, so kicking off at number 6, the bottom of the obvious barrel, the Munsters. Hello, worst movie of 2022 and worst movie from Mr. Zombie again. I really don't know what criteria people would use, but this was just bad. It was cartoonish at best, and not even that. It's like, for someone who can shock his audiences, I'm not sure who the audience for this was. The people who remember the TV show, or the generation who has no idea who the Munsters were or even are. Like me. The appeal of the original show was it was an unordinary family living in current society like the Addams Family. This is just an unoriginal family just living in the unordinary society, which is just normal. It just isn't funny. There was not even a single redeeming quality to this movie whatsoever. The comedy was just stupid. I just won't even say anything else because this movie is just so bad, there was nothing else to even say about this atrocity. Now kicking off at number 5 is going to be 2016's 31. Before this year's The Munsters, this was by far the worst Rob Zombie movie ever. It felt like they went dumpster diving in the trash pile of most Zombies films and took whatever edited out bits were laying in a dumpster to string them together in this steaming turd. There was no character to root for. There was nothing but a bunch of aging actors trying to survive a storm against other aging actors. In fact, the scariest part of the film was how badly certain actors have aged. And while, if there was one good quality, I will say that Richard Brake's performance of Doomhead was very well done. Even he could not save this film, sadly. There's just nothing here. Just a bunch of aging stoners get kidnapped by some rich psychos who force them to spend the night trying to survive against a group of sadistic freaks wearing clown makeup. Everyone gets killed in various ways with lots of blood, but nothing really felt like payoff. Every kill was so mad because we've seen it all before, and there was no motivation or characterization to care about. Money is pretty much the sole motive behind this film, and we're showing that it's just a high-paying job to Doomhead, and the game was just about a money bet for the rich. Typical Purge 70s knockoff. Kicking off at number 4 is the third installment of the Firefly trilogy from 2019, 3 from Hell. Man, did I try to have hope for this one back in that year. Maybe Rob would get back to his roots. I sadly couldn't find it in theaters and I had to wait for this fucker to come to DVD just to watch it. And did it save his career? Nope. What an awful movie, and such a sad way of killing some good horror villains of the horror genre. This sequel just does absolutely nothing. It is as unnecessarily very cheap as it also is stupid. Well, movies like Halloween, Child's Play, Nightmare on Street, Friday the 13th had numerous sequels, So what's the difference? Well, there's a big difference. The Firefly family are humans. Humans die, specifically after being shot 1,000 fucking times. It was a fine ending to Devil's Rejects and should have been left alone. Also, for some unexplained reason, they're back to do absolutely nothing. Zombie has no idea what to do with the characters of the story. And even Danny Trejo comes back in one of the biggest fuck yous to Devil's Rejects.
Payback's a bitch, motherfucker.
What the fuck is that?
That just one scene alone just entirely ruins all of this movie. And if, seriously, if there is one thing to learn from being Halloween Resurrection, never be Halloween Resurrection, Rob. He just undid everything he accomplished in Devils by stripping these amazing characters of their purpose and luring them into pointless, unimportant killing machines. You have Sherry Moon even dreaming about some kitty for some weird scene that makes no sense. And what is pretty much worse is that they're the ones you're actually supposed to root for in this movie. We're supposed to be against the big bad warden and his family and even the big bad Aquarius and his gang that all want them dead for killing Rondo. The only reason this did not get a horseshit ranking was for Bill Moseley and Richard Brake's chemistry and Richard Brake's performance. But other than that, Three from Hell does not deserve to exist in my book. Now, I know Halloween 2 and Halloween are not on this list, the Rob Zombie versions anyways, because once again, I'm saving those for my remade Halloween ranking next weekend. But if I did include them, then this would be 8 movies, and those 3 I just ranted about would be 8, 7, and 6. And if you're wondering where I would put those 2 in the spot, Halloween 2 would be number 5, the 2009 version, and Halloween 2007 remake would be in number 4. Anyway, back to the real ranking. Now, at number 3 is going to be for 2013's The Lords of Salem. Man, this one was so close to actually achieving greatness up until the last bit. I admire parts of this movie, but as a whole, it feels really uneven. I admire the style and some of the visuals, but I never found it frightening or suspenseful. It's cool that Zombie opted for a slow burn approach instead of loud, gory scares like he's known for. The problem is that there never really is a burn, although some of the images along the way are inedible. The Lords of Salem is Rob Zombie's most original film. Unlike his previous films, there's no handheld shaky camera work, the shots are stable, and the interior scenes of the apartment building are perfectly symmetrical. Again, it's like Zombie is trying to conjure the spirit of Kubrick here. It seemed at the time anyways before 31 ruined this moment. He had matured, but as a writer, he seemed stuck at the level of an angry high school film student. Well, however, the reason why this movie did not achieve greatness was because of the very final half of the film. So yeah, sadly, this movie fell apart in the final half of the film, so that's why it's not higher. Now, on to the 2 greats. At number 2 is going to be for 2003's House of a Thousand Corpses. The movie that kick-started his film career. House of a Thousand Corpses starts off pretty good. It has a unique, freaky style to it with weird video filters, split screens, and some really fun characters. The opening immediately sets a tone and establishes a weird and funny style. It is a horror movie with a big wink to the audience. But unfortunately, while the movie does start off strong, it quickly gets stuck in the predictable plot of a bunch of freaks kidnapping and murdering a bunch of teens. None of the victims in this plot are interesting, and none of them even seem remotely competent or attempting to fight back. And therein lies the real problem with this movie. It feels like the director was more in love with the freaks than the victims. Don't get me wrong, I like this film. It's not a masterpiece by any means, and it falls down a lot of areas. But on the other hand, there's a lot to like. Like Sid Haig's wonderful over-the-top Captain Spaulding steals every scene he's in. There are some hilarious characters and moments of dialogue, such as the prologue with Spaulding when the Fireflies go to buy some booze for their Halloween party. The characterization of the protagonist, although it is quite obvious to any horror fan, is quite well done. The Firefly family are fantastically flamboyant caricatures of the worst horror movie villains and play with conviction, avoid the temptation to camp them up. While this movie isn't as shocking or chilling as I may have liked, the slow exposition of gruesome events in an otherwise fast-paced film does really well to build tension and repulse the viewer. The ending is otherwise fast-paced film. The ending is substantially over the top and does look like something out of a graphic novel, but somehow fits together with the rest of the film, despite the villains being played convincingly and general grim rather than camp tone of the film. It's so over the top in some places and surreal in others that it's difficult to know whether or not to take this film seriously. So, House of Thousand Corpses is good, but the next one is way better. Kicking off at number 1, the best Rob Zombie movie of all time is obviously 2005's The Devil's Rejects, down to Rob's magnum opus. First of all, let me state that I love this movie and House of Thousand Corpses, like I've already mentioned. Yes, there are flaws in here, continuing errors, lapse of reason, and other inconsistencies, but if you're very familiar with Corpses, you'll have some specific questions that will go unanswered. If not, you'll simply be confused. That being said, the performances here for this movie are top notch, especially like from Bill Moseley, Sid Haig, William Forsythe. I'm also only vaguely familiar with the 70s horror slashers that it referenced, but enough so as to get it. The film also features absolutely outstanding performances from some certainly unknown actors. The Murders Trio are played wonderfully, but the show is definitely stolen by William Forsythe. From the beginning of the film, he has nothing but fire and brimstone and fearsome intensity, capturing the man consumed by revenge archetype better than I've ever seen. Truly outstanding. I also really love seeing the Firefly Trio finally get the shit kicked out of them by Waddell after all the nasty shit they've done for so many decades, especially Otis, the most of them. Speaking of Otis, now we get on to the bad qualities of the movie. And there are still some typical Rob Zombie problems I have with this. The bad qualities I have with this one are the typical Rob dialogue. Rob's wife still cannot act easily, although she is much better in this compared to the rest of Rob's movies. And let's not forget the infamous rape scene in the motel between Otis and one of his hostages. That I can agree with on many people. But The Devil's Rejects is still a major improvement over its predecessor. It's much more sadistic, feels a lot more realistic than the first movie, and that makes it much more disturbing. The ending of this movie is perfectly amazing. It's honestly one of my favorite endings to any horror movie ever, and I like to pretend that is where the story ends. Free from Hell does not exist. And there we go, guys. That pretty much wraps up all my ranking for the 6 Rob Zombie movies. That doesn't include the Halloween films, but anyway, for those of you who have seen his movies, for those of you horror fans that have seen his movies, I'd like to know in the bottom down below how you would rank his movies, and if you would include the Halloween films in this ranking, but I know what a lot of you would probably put Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 at, so that would be kind of an obvious spot. But anyway, yeah, let me know in the comments below how you'd rank his films from worst to best. Either opinion is fine. Until then, guys, that'll be it for this ranking. Thank y'all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.